And we're back with 90% less hair this time. I did get a haircut and a beard trim between my last video and this one. I had that long hair. Obviously, I didn't really show it off on camera. I had that long hair for like a year. So I decided to go with something different because it was getting really annoying. And I had to tie it up all the time. And it became a thing. Oh, here comes Jack. Here he comes. I don't know, you can probably see him, but hi Jack. How you doing? So I get up because I'm talking. So this is going to be a little bit of a different video. As you can see here, I do have a copy of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think my dog tripped. I don't think he bumped into the camera. Hopefully that's not the case. Here I have a copy of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Chain Reactions, which is a documentary about a bunch of different people and what Texas Chainsaw Massacre means to them. And so I bought this mainly because it comes with a bunch of extra bonus features. It comes with the feature film and bonus features, but it comes with 2 extra discs, which come with, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 8 different copies of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And so that really drew me in because, you know, of course it drew me in because it's a movie I don't have a whole lot of experience with. I've had this DVD copy forever. This is the first time I had ever seen the film, was through this DVD copy. And it, like, I understand how good of a movie it was. It just didn't really stick with me. What's up, buddy? Oh, but I think what I was saying before that cut, this is the first time I'd ever seen the film. Comes with a little DVD and a little booklet in here, probably just with the chapters and yeah. Painstakingly restored from the 16mm ECO negatives. I love this front cover. I love the covers of both of these, but it's not necessarily a film that had like any real weight to it for me for the first time watching it. It wasn't until the viewing that I had today. I watched this documentary a couple days ago and I went, okay, I really should watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I'm probably not going to talk too much about Chain Reactions, but this is kind of like a weird culmination of a bunch of different stuff. I'm going to kind of talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I'm also going to kind of talk about film in general and the kind of current state of film. Because this was a really low budget indie film back in 1976, I believe, or 1974, I believe. Yeah, 74. And we're going to kind of talk about some stuff a little later on, especially the sequels that were made to this, because watching this movie, there was a couple of things that I was like, oh, I kind of wish this never had sequels, because I don't want this, like, this is kind of a thing where it's like, oh, they give you just enough to like get your brain going and think about all these different things, especially about like the Grandpa Sawyer, about him being like the best killer. And I know they made like a Leatherface movie that's about him when he was a kid, and I'm sure it goes into all that shit. But there's like 3 sequels after this. There was 3 of the Next Generations, the Matthew McConaughey one, and then I think there were like 3 or 4 modern ones. So this is like a movie that doesn't feel like it should have gotten really any sequels. And the fact that it didn't even get a sequel until like 12 years after this, because it was just the height of the slasher boom. And it's like, oh, let's dig up Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Thankfully, Tobe Hooper at least like directed that one. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any of those sequels. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the only one I've seen, and it's kind of the only one I care to see, unless I maybe do like a longer series about it, talking a little bit more in depth about the series as a whole. But I also came across an article today where Disney is partnering up with like OpenAI to be able to use like characters in their Sora app. If you don't know what Sora is, it's an AI generated bullshit app where you can just like generate videos, and it's kind of like TikTok but worse. And my general stance on AI, especially when it comes to a creative field, is that it doesn't belong there. Like I will literally not push in any way, shape, or form that AI should be included in film. It's kind of unfortunate that we are seeing it kind of creep in a little bit more. And it's a thing that, I was watching a podcast and the new VHS movie came out, which is sort of this like horror anthology series that's been going on for a while. I think there were like 6 or 7. I think I've only seen the first one, if I remember correctly. All the rest are on Shudder, and I don't have Shudder. Which, like, streaming services is a whole other thing, and Netflix is buying Warner Brothers, and then Paramount's trying to do another hostile takeover, like a higher offer than Netflix, and the offer to pay in cash. And if anything, if I want 2 companies to merge, I would hope it to be Paramount and Warner Brothers, because they're like 2 of like the major founding production companies that have essentially founded Hollywood. And why they're the companies when film went from New York to California. Those were the guys who established all that stuff. And obviously the original owners are been dead for a while now, but they still kind of like mean something. And Warner Brother has a phenomenal archive. Like I just read an article of the Warner I think so, like the Warner Brother archive, where they released like a bunch of new stuff on a Blu-ray that potentially would have never gotten released, and it's probably stuff, unless you grew up with it, probably never heard of. They're films that I've never heard of, but I still appreciate what they do with that. And I don't know what Netflix would do with that, and it kind of worries me because I don't generally like Netflix in total. I live out here in New Mexico, and they film stuff here all the time, and there's even a Netflix studio probably about like 20 minutes from here, and I've seen it before. And yeah, but I'm kind of getting, I think talking about this topic is kind of indicative of like cinema as a whole, because I feel like we're going through a really major change in cinema right now, where obviously I love film, if you can't tell. I know like the films behind me are some are visible, but I love film, I love physical media, and there's talks that if Netflix buys it out, there's going to be longer theater runs, and they're going to go streaming even quicker, which is kind of a thing ever since the pandemic, where we've kind of been inching closer and closer, where it's like, well, I don't want to go to the theater because it's either too expensive depending on your region, or you don't have the time, so I'll wait till it comes to streaming for until I'll wait the 2 weeks it takes to come to streaming. Red Letter Media, a YouTube channel that I'm very heavily inspired by, did a video called The Death of Movie Theaters that I highly recommend. Some of my talking points that I'm talking about right now is like coming straight from the video, so I highly recommend you talk about that video because they have a different perspective about it. I don't go to the movie theaters often. I like to go to the movie theaters when I can. It's just I had a lot of work and school kind of get in my way. There's even a local cinema I love going to called The Guild that I absolutely just love going to. But not to get too far away from the topic, because I haven't really talked about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This movie is wonderful. This movie is understandably influential, and that's kind of like what this documentary is more about. Chain Reactions is about. It's Stephen King, Patton Oswalt, Karen Kusama, Takashi Miike, and Alexander Heller Nicholas. Karen Kusama is, I believe, an Australian film critic and film historian. And then Alexander Heller Nicholas is a film director that I'm not too familiar with. I'm kind of more tempted to check out her stuff now because of this. And Takashi Miike is a Japanese film director that I love. I found his story to be like a little bit more interesting than everyone else's. Patton Oswalt is like a really weird inclusion into this. He has some interesting stuff to kind of say. He opens up the documentary and he kind of gives some like interesting theories about what he thinks the movie's about, that I don't fully agree with. I think it's about a lot of other things than that. But no, watching this movie, I tried watching they have a rip of the 1981 Wizard Video VHS, which is, I guess, like was the most accessible VHS for this, and it's kind of like a holy grail collector's item if you're into VHS. It goes over for like $1,000, and while I enjoyed watching that copy, the audio was so out of sync, it bothers me. Out of sync audio is like my biggest pet peeve when it comes to films. So I turned that off, and then I watched the like 16 millimeter barbecue. They call it the barbecue edition print, which is essentially like just a different 16 millimeter print. It's very red, but I had a lot more enjoyment out of that one. When it comes to the visuals, I think this is a whole other topic we can get into at a later date, because there's a couple of movies I'd like to get together where I think, depending on the format you watch a film in, I think it can enhance your experience. I have a copy of Pulse, the Kiyoshi Kurosawa film, over on my shelf. I don't know if I can see it from here. Where's my P? It's somewhere over there. Oh, I see it. It's next by King Kong. But that has a Blu-ray and a DVD, and I kind of prefer watching that on DVD because it kind of taps into the visuals a little bit better. There's like a lot of stuff where you're like, oh, I'm not sure what I'm quite looking at. And I think DVD helps heighten that experience, much like watching the 16 millimeter print kind of heighten the experience of this film because it's so dirty and kind of grungy, and the set design is wonderful. And there's so many cool shots in this film that I could gush about, especially the scene where Leatherface is introduced when boyfriend character, sorry, I don't have like character names written down because this is kind of not necessarily a review, but just kind of like equating something like this to the current state of cinema. And hopefully this isn't a huge, big old fucking mess that I feel like it's starting to turn into. But this is something that, while watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre and seeing the artistry and seeing how, like, it does feel like a low-budget film, which is totally okay. It feels like a low-budget independent film. And this is the kind of stuff that I just love seeing. And obviously Tobe Hooper would go on to make like more bigger budget stuff and even like same budget stuff. And Tobe Hooper's a director that I'm not, too familiar with. Obviously, like Poltergeist, I know that, and I know of some of his other stuff. And watching this Chain Reactions documentary, I kind of want to go and learn more about him. But it kind of makes me like see where we're going towards like AI and like generative AI. And another thing I want to bring up is that fucking Coca-Cola ad. I've stopped drinking Coke products because of that Coca-Cola ad, or I'm going to wean myself off of Coca-Cola products because I drink Coke Zero or whatever the fuck diet, or yeah, Coke Zero quite a bit. And so I think I'm going to go towards Pepsi products. That's if they haven't done anything too egregious with generative AI. But I was considering it when that ad came out because it's the second time in the year they've done it. And it's the second time in the year that they've done it, and had such negative backlash the first year that they decided to do it again. And then when everyone was like, no, why are we doing this? This is shit. They're like, oh, actually, it requires way more artistry than you think. And then they just released this like totally false, like behind the scenes footage. I was kind of watching somebody else because I kind of don't want to give it the proper attention, but somebody else break it down. And it's just like a bunch of AI like storyboards and like seeing people be like, I'm an actual storyboard artist. We don't color stuff in, and all the storyboards are colored in, and they're very obviously AI generated. And like to try to justify that there's like people worked on this way more than you think. And that's just not true. So Coke went out of their way to make a fake video trying to justify an AI generated ad. And it's just baffling and feels like morally wrong. It feels like it should be borderline illegal. It's just like, it kind of questions the ethics of like them as a whole. And I know they're like $1 billion corporation, and $1 billion corporations kind of suck. And it's just like, why? Like, you're $1 billion corporation, maybe even more. I don't fucking know. I don't care about the fucking net worth of Coca-Cola, right? But they have to be big enough to like that it'd be a drop in the bucket for them to make an ad where it's just like all real things. Like they've been doing it since I believe 1995, if I remember correctly. Just like if you want to be that fucking lazy, just release one of your fucking old ads and just like be like, oh, just like this is the feeling of Christmas. And another thing that the reason that I bring up this Coke ad, and it's kind of getting a lot more on my nerves than anything, is because I have the TV I watch everything on is a Sony Bravia 8, 77-inch Sony Bravia 8. And if you turn on the TV, there's some like ads for stuff that's like, oh, you should check this out or check this out. And for the most part, that doesn't necessarily bother me. It's like, it's a thing that, it's just going to happen. I'm on that screen for so little that it really doesn't bother me. But I saw that fucking Coca-Cola ad, and like, it's just being clowned on. And like, for the most part, I come from an interesting perspective that I was talking to somebody about the other day, where I'm so within this niche that I don't understand. I don't know what the general layman thinks of this kind of stuff, and I don't necessarily like go and seek out that stuff. Like, I'm not going to go out because like I'm not on social media really much anymore. This is about it, YouTube, and I have Facebook for family. And so like, I'm just not on social media anymore because social media is a fucking pit of despair that I'm way happier that I'm off it now. Like I don't even have TikTok because I spend way too much fucking time on that. And so I don't know the general reaction of it. I know I see reactions on YouTube, and then I know McDonald's did that, like also AI generated ad. So like I'm on YouTube, but I understand that YouTube's like recommended is tailored towards me. If I started watching a bunch of AI bro, tech bro stuff, I'm sure I'd see a lot more positive reaction. But that's also the other side of the extreme, I feel. And so I just don't know, like, the general consensus. And I would love to hear, if you come across this video and watch it and get to this point, what you generally think about this topic. I don't care about your experience. I don't care if, like, you're really into film, if you watch, 3 movies a year. I would just love to hear people's general experience, because it's a thing where I'm so, as I said, so deep within this niche that I don't think I can step like outside of it, because I am so passionate about this kind of stuff and passionate about movies like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that, was made 50 years ago at this point. That there's like true artistry here, and there's a reason that this documentary Chain Reactions got made, and why there's 8 different versions of Texas Chainsaw Massacre in this release, because like people care and people want to preserve that kind of stuff. Like there's a bootleg Czechoslovakian VHS on here, which is a German VHS that made its way to Czechoslovakia. There's a story about it in like the booklet here, that made its way to Czechoslovakia, and one Czechoslovakia guy dubbed the entire film. And so like, there's like really an appreciation for that. And somebody had to like go out of their way to do that. Whereas like you hear about the Amazon stuff and how they did like their first like AI generated like voiceover, and nobody likes it. And you have like the passion of this one Czechoslovakia guy who got paid to dub the Texas Chainsaw Massacre so people in Czechoslovakia can watch it. Because if I understand at the time, please correct me if I'm wrong, there was kind of a film ban in Czechoslovakia during this time. Because this came in 1987. This specific like VHS came from 1987. And so, like, I'm sure a movie like Texas Chainsaw Massacre probably wouldn't be released in Czechoslovakia at the time. And so you have to have like this like bootleg VHS like get passed around so people can watch this movie. But that, I don't know, that to me that just kind of attests to how much people want film and want to experience film and want that kind of like, humans should make art because it's filled with soul and experience and even like mistakes, and I can't think of any like standout mistakes, but like there's so much effort put into these things. Like movies are not an effortless craft. Like I think if you talk to the majority of people, they'll probably say making movies kind of sucks, because you get an hour and 30 minutes or an hour and like 20 minutes like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but they probably filmed it for months. where you're only seeing the end result. You have to think about like all the stuff that goes into it, and what movies are trying to say about the current times. Like I know I read a little bit about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Tobe Hooper felt that there was like a lack of empathy on like television and like news reports to the point where it was like almost gross. And he felt like man is the real villain. So he went and made Texas Chainsaw Massacre to kind of help express those feelings. And so like you're never going to get that from an AI. Like I remember even watching this video I watched about the Coca-Cola ad. It's like one of the AI generated things is straight up just like Po from Kung Fu Panda. There's like a bunch of lemurs popping up. That's like literally taken from The Lion King. Like all AI does is scrape from the internet and regurgitate. It doesn't create really anything new. It just steals from the internet and just vomits on your screen. And most of the time, like AI is used for such like low common denominator things that I think people like to think that they're creative, and just haven't realized that they're not, because it's like usually people use Sora for the lowest common denominator thing. What if Pikachu was in Saving Private Ryan? What if Mario was in Star Wars? And these aren't examples off the top of my head. They are videos I've actually seen. And it's just like, what if I take this IP and mash it with this IP? That'd be so cool. And it's just like boring and derivative, and you can't even come up with your own ideas, and you're using an engine that scrapes from other people's work. And so that's like generally how I feel about that. And I think if you don't know how to spot AI, I think it's imperative that you go and educate yourself, because I think it's only going to be way more invasive into our culture. And while I won't really try not to support anything AI, and I said that I probably would drop Coke products and move to Pepsi. I'm sure Pepsi has done maybe stuff with AI in the past. Who knows? I don't know. I haven't done the research on that yet, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's how I generally feel about boycotting, where it's like you can boycott something, but another aspect of your life is probably something that is as bad or as worse than the thing that you're boycotting. And so that's why billion-dollar companies fucking blow. But I guess to kind of like wrap this back into Texas Chainsaw, I think after watching Texas Chainsaw, I already talked about that. I think it's just like, I would like to live in a world that where Texas Chainsaw Massacre didn't get 7 sequels and reboots and all that kind of stuff, because it makes your brain think. It makes you actually like engage with the film. It's like, we're like why are these like why is this family messed up? Like why? Like most of them don't have names. Leatherface is only named Leatherface in the credits. Like the brother is named as Hitchhiker, the dad is named Old Man, and then like the grandpa is Grandpa, right? Like they didn't become the Sawyers until the sequel, 12 years later, because as I said, middle of the slasher era, and they just want to dig up whatever they can. And I feel like that's kind of how, that's something that's been going on forever. It's been going on since the 80s. It's been going on since, adaptations and, sequels have been going on since the beginning of film. So I'm not necessarily complaining too much about sequels, but I do think it gets your brain engaged, where it's like they have a line of like, Grandpa is the best killer. He could hit somebody in one hit and, it'd kill them. And then the dad doesn't like killing too much, and he's only the cook, and they're like his like son, and the hitchhiker is like so in your face and like makes fun of Sally when she's sitting there and crying, and is like so abrasive. And seeing this like family dynamic is so interesting. It's like, well, where's like their mom? Is their mom dead? Like you kind of see like a corpse that sits across from Grandpa in his room. It's like, is that Grandma? And some people in like Chain Reactions like relate it to like farming in America and that industry. And Patton Oswalt's whole theory is like, it's like a virus from the sun, and this like, because there's like so much focus on the sun, and the opening credits like are sun flares, and it's like, it's like the sickness from the sun that's like driving people crazy. But like seeing so many different perspectives on this film is why I kind of wish it was this kind of encapsulated like singular event. But obviously the Texas Chainsaw Massacre I think is pretty big in pop culture. And I'm curious to see if it would have been, if all those sequels weren't made. But yeah, I just think I kind of like, I should say this with like a big asterisk. I don't think current cinema is bad. I think a lot of people are like doom and gloom, where it's like they'll watch a movie like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and be like, oh, they don't make it like this anymore. I think film has changed throughout all of the decades. Like I've been watching quite a few Cary Grant movies recently, and Cary Grant, I read a thing where Cary Grant wanted to retire because Marlon Brando, and he felt method acting was the next thing, and he felt his way of acting was out, like, going out the window, essentially. And he stuck around for a little bit longer. People convinced him to make films still, but it's a thing where film is always going to change. The way film is made is going to change. The way people act the way people act in films are always going to change. And I still think there are phenomenal movies being made to this day. And, I can't always go to the theater and see them, but, if I see something, I really want to see that, I'll always pick it up on Blu-ray and add it to my physical collection. Or if I go and see something like last year, I saw The Substance in theaters, and I absolutely loved it, and I knew I had to get it on 4K. So as soon as it was available, I got it on 4K. Like the Naked Gun remake, I think just came out on Blu-ray or is coming out on Blu-ray soon. I laughed hysterically at the Naked Gun remake. There's like all this stuff from like Neon and A24 and foreign countries that are constantly being made. Like I wasn't the biggest fan of Cloud, but I like Kiyoshi Kurosawa, and I'm gonna watch Cloud. And overall, I enjoyed it for what it was. And so I don't think like movies being made, to kind of hopefully end this video on a hopeful bit, I don't think like movies are going to go in the trash. I don't think it's like the worst era of movies ever. There's like really cool and creative stuff that require a lot of effort and a lot of work from a lot of people coming out. And, I'm not saying that I watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre and I went, oh, cinema's going to shit. Because you read articles from actual creatives. I think the person who wrote The Wire did an interview where the person was asking like, oh, don't you wish that like you had these tools when you're writing The Wire? And he's like, what? And she's like, yeah. Or the person interviewing, I shouldn't say she, I don't know who it was. The person interviewing him was like, yeah, wouldn't you love to have like ChatGPT help you like come up with like the in-between stuff? And I think his exact quote was, I'd rather put a gun in my mouth. So when you actually talk to, like, when you see these interviews with creatives and the people who actually like care about the art, I think a lot of this stuff comes from producers and executives and people who are like so far out of touch. And I haven't watched it yet, but Drew Gooden, a guy on YouTube, released a video called like Greed is Ruining the World. And I think I agree with that current sentiment, because I think it's like when you have like the Tilly, whatever the fuck, the first AI actor, I want to say Jennifer Tilly, but no, Jennifer Tilly's wonderful, real person. Love watching Jennifer Tilly. But no, I think you get into that kind of stuff, and I think a lot of people push back about that. Like, we had a whole writers and actors strike last year, or earlier this year, I can't quite remember, about this stuff. So I think there's a lot of people who care, and even if there is a fully AI-generated movie, I don't think people will give a shit. I think people will maybe sit down to watch it out of curiosity and realize, oh, this doesn't feel right. As a little anecdote, Albuquerque has a film festival sometimes, and I did some screening stuff and did some judge stuff for some of these short films. It was like a volunteer thing, and I came across an AI generated work, and I watched it for about 5 minutes, and I went, oh, this is just dog shit. And so I turned it off, and I rated it horribly, because I think I even said like AI has no room in a place like this, because it's a lot of people who are first-time filmmakers, who make a short little 20-minute thing, where I've seen one that's like about people in the 50s who get pulled over and there's an alien invasion, and like this alien comes down and talks to them, or stuff with like time loops. And it's just like, even if they're not great, they don't blow my mind, it's still people making stuff. And so I think no matter what, we're going to have all these creatives wanting to actually put in the effort to get their vision across. And so it's simply a thing of watching something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think just kind of like, I don't know. I see all these articles of like, as I said, Disney, like people letting, like Disney letting people use like characters in Sora, and I don't know, just like diluting an IP and all these like really big executive things, kind of like almost, I don't want to say like ruining the stuff from your childhood, but just like constantly milking it and like kind of breeding this nostalgia. As I said, it's been around for a really long time, but there are creatives out there who are going to make fresh new works, and there's fresh new movies being released all the time. And so I don't want to say that like film is dying or anything like that, but it does get me thinking, where it's like watching something like Chain Reactions makes me realize how like something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre has an effect on people and makes them want to create. Like Takashi Miike in this documentary talks about how he went to go see a Charlie Chaplin movie, but it was completely sold out, and he lived like an hour and a half away. And he's like, well, I'm going to go watch a movie. And he saw the poster for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It wasn't this one. It was the one where it's like Leatherface. It's the white one with, I think, Sally running away. And he thought it was like some sort of erotic like thriller. So he's like, oh, I'll watch this. And he went to go watch it, and it actually changed his worldview. And he even says that like, if I didn't watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I probably wouldn't become a director. And so I think art made by people has an effect on people that want to go on and make more art. And so I think like movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre will always have a place in our hearts because of things like that. I think I'm literally just going to title this video like Rambling. Like not a review or anything like that. But kind of, I've been talking for 32 minutes now with some stuff I'm probably going to cut out. Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to talk about that kind of stuff. I don't think I'll talk about this frequently, but it was something that was kind of bubbling up for me today. And, you know, it's just something that I didn't necessarily want to talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a review, because people have done that a bunch of other times. So I kind of wanted to like relate to this. Like I wanted to take this movie and talk about the artistry of film and kind of where I see like bigger Hollywood going. But as I said, I still think there's going to be plenty of creatives who make work and make art and, you know, are always going to want to create and not take the easy fucking AI generated, looks fake as fuck, inconsistent thing, right? You can't direct AI actors. Like you can't get, unless, you know, you have like prompt people, but all they're doing is typing a thing over and over again and hitting enter. Like there's no artistry to it. Yeah, that's generally what my thoughts are. This is kind of a new-ish channel, so maybe this is kind of a good video to see where I stand on this kind of stuff. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, whatever this was. I'll be back to reviews soonish. I'm getting a copy of Angel's Egg here in the mail soon, probably tomorrow. And I really want to talk about that film. And this week has been my brain relaxing kind of week, but I promise that the Shanghai Blossoms conversations will continue. Obviously just on a week by week basis unless I catch up, but it's a longer show and I haven't really had the time for it. Blossom Shanghai? Did I say Shanghai Blossoms? I say Blossom Shanghai if I said it the other way. That will come hopefully eventually whenever I get around to it. This is a channel where it's like I don't necessarily want a consistent upload schedule, and I kind of want to make what I want to make. This isn't like, you know, this is just a little hobby of mine. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you have anything, I would love to hear your thoughts about just kind of this topic in general. What do you think about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Have you seen Chain Reactions? You know, is there any movies you want me to check out? All that kind of stuff. And again, thank you for watching. This has been one of my longer videos, but I still very much appreciate it. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.